In case you're just now joining us, we have in the studio today with us Dr. Stephen Weinman. He is a professor of engineering, associate professor at the University of Alabama. Welcome to the studio, Dr.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be back.
Well, and, you were such a hit. We got you back quick.
Yeah, you did.
And you've been on another podcast because we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, so you were on concentrating on chromatography with David Oliva.
Yep.
And I listened to that one, and thanks for the shout-out.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
You
connected us.
I listened to it, and that's what we like to hear.
Yeah,
we like to connect.
I love to send our researchers to David. And
we like to connect.
We have a great collaboration going. I'm very grateful for that. But I like how he drew some parallels between his discussion with Dr. Guy Caldwell and yours. So Doctors Kim and Guy Caldwell of the Caldwell Lab, and you from your lab, you all seem to go to some really great lengths to make sure your PhD/graduate students are able to keep funding. This is in light of the recent federal budget cuts.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
What I would like to know from you, I know that there's different reasons that this is important. I want to know all the reasons, but if you don't mind, I would like for you to talk about lab continuity among your PhD students. Why is that important?
Yeah, right. So while I have the title of professor and lead the lab, I don't really do most of the experiments in the lab, right? It's all the students, all the graduate and undergraduate students that do actually all the work in the lab. And then we write about it, give talks about it, get to tell people about it, right? Things like this today. But they're the ones that do the work. And so, it's been 8 years since I've done most lab experiments in the lab. There's a few things that I know how to do.
Yeah, you're the mentor.
But it's mentoring. Happen. Like, are we doing this the right way? Is this data look good, et cetera? Like, what do we need to do?
You have to vet everything out. And
yeah. And so, lab continuity is critical. People know how your machine specifically works. Yeah, there might be a general protocol, but how does your one behave, right? Sometimes it can be finicky, sometimes it can't.
Right.
Or we do different experiments where, you can read this, quote, recipe for how to do an experiment, but that doesn't mean that there's not some intuition that you have to use during it, right? So, for example, if you breathe on something wrong, you're going to get a bad result sometimes. And so you've got to know the specific steps on how to do all of this. And so we try to write some of the things down, but there's just some things that you have to learn, hands-on, doing it while someone's watching you how to do it type of stuff. And so it's very important that we have this continuity of being able to show people how to do all these things as they get ready to graduate and leave and go find a job, whatever that may be, with industry or a postdoc or another academic position or a national lab, right? Training all the new graduate students that come in and how to do all these things. And that takes time,
right? That's
to master those
important.
things down.
Yeah, and one of the things that we can oftentimes in the skilled trades, they talk about the pipeline. The pipeline, because of skilled trades, are retiring out. We've got to fill the pipeline.
Yep.
Same goes for these bright minds that are coming along to fill the pipeline. That's going to lead
ideas,
to the research.
Yeah. And it saves, lots and lots of time, right? Yeah. It can be 3 to 6 months to learn how to do something really well. And so if you can cut any of that down, it's very, very helpful.
But we got to keep the research moving forward and keep that pipeline filled with these new scientists, new researchers doing this kind of work. So you just can't do something and stop. We got to keep funding it.
Correct. Yeah, it depends on the award you get, but most awards that we get typically last 3 to 4 years. And for a typical graduate student, at least in chemical and biological engineering, they usually take about 5 years to graduate.
Yeah.
Is the typical average, right? So there's a mismatch in those number of years, and so we have to figure out and piece together different ways of funding to be able to support them for their entire time, right? That includes paying their stipend, essentially their salary, as well as their tuition, their benefits, right? And then also different materials and supplies they use in the lab, traveling to conferences, et cetera, right? We have to pay all of those different things.
Let's tell our audience a little bit why we're doing this and why we're talking about this. The federal government, through the National Institute for Health and the
National Science Foundation, Department of Energy,
the funding was cut for research pretty severely in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
Not all, but a lot of them.
A lot of them.
And I'll give you an example. Dr. Caldwell, who we've mentioned, when he was on the show, he mentioned he had 9 PhD candidates all had lost their funding. That's 9 potential scientists, researchers that are going to solve problems.
That's right.
And what's happened is that the federal government, and I won't go into the politics of it, cut a tremendous amount of this funding, and it needs to be restored because it has a severe impact on future solutions, future leaders in science and academia, where all the research happens. And so we're wanting to remind everybody, if you're talking with anybody in our congressional delegation, remind them we want the funding restored.
We do. We want that restored, and we are all for cutting out the fat.
Yeah, and
but at the same time, we've got to keep what's really important.
Two of the leaders on restoring the funding are two important people. One is Senator Katie Britt. She plays a major role in the Senate on this. And then our own Congressman Robert Adderhold, who part of Tuscaloosa is in his district, he sits on appropriation, and he writes budgets.
Yep.
And so both of them have taken a lead. And so what we want you to do is contact Senator Britt and Congressman Adderhold, thank them for taking the lead, and offer your support and encouragement so we can get this funding restored in the new fiscal year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, right, and this, yes, we produce papers, yes, we get grant funding and all these things. Our product is the students that we produce, right, out of our labs, out of the university.
That's a great way to articulate
and so,
that.
Right, that is our product that goes out into the world to work on whatever problem that they get hired to work on, right? And so if we can't produce the students, we don't have the product.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And we've got to be able to pay them, right? Otherwise, they're not going to do graduate school.
Well, and our university, of course, we've got a great research university. It's going to get even bigger. So we want to make sure that we're supporting our university.
Yep.
And across the state, we've got great universities. So there's a lot of individuals like Stephen that are bringing along these new, fresh, bright, talented people. And we want to keep that continuity going.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and segue to break. We'll be talking more when we come back with Dr. Stephen Weinman about what's happening in the lab today, what it means for our lives down the road. That's next on The Noon Show. You've been listening to The Noon Show on FM 100.1. Don't go away. We will be here right back.
Point one with Lisa Jones and Johnny Aycock. Online on the Catfish Tuscaloosa app. You can call us anytime live at 205-723-0731 or message us on the Catfish Tuscaloosa app. Now here's Lisa and Johnny.
Welcome back to The Noon Show.
Back.
Right here on FM 100.1, better known as Fun Radio. And thank you for joining us. Fascinating conversation already underway, and this is going to get even better. In just a second, we're going to get back to Dr. Stephen. Can I call you Dr. Stephen? That sounds cool.
That's totally fine.
I like that. Dr. Stephen.
I like that.
I'm meeting more PhDs these days, and I tell you what, I am blown away, not only by their expertise and knowledge and brain power, but just how super nice these folks are.
Yeah.
They're really cool people. And, Stephen, you're one of them.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, I think Johnny Rocket's going to circle those wagons around and try to talk a little bit about economic development based on something else we heard on you discussing with David Oliva on your episode of the Concentrating on Chromatography podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part. I enjoyed the whole conversation.
But, it was great.
But it was a great conversation because David and you were talking about how do you take what you're learning in the lab and applying it and making it something that can be practical and applied in the real world.
Yep.
And can you remind folks a little bit about what we were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing the fundamental science, trying to understand, like, how does this work, if it does work, and then trying to understand, like, well, can we make it better if we understand the nitty-gritty details on how all this works, and then how do we scale that up, right? Sometimes that's easy to do. Sometimes that's not easy to do, right? There's things in our lab that sometimes we take 24 or 48 hours to do, not so practical on a commercial scale, versus some things take seconds to do, which is very practical. So if we try to balance some of those things and think about those things sometime, but ultimately we're trying to understand whether or not we have an idea that even works.
Yeah, and there's some big names that we all know. DuPont comes to mind.
Yep.
It
big one.
Does a lot of this stuff, but as far as a local state application, we're always looking, how do you take research and put it in the marketplace? And one of the things that caught my attention as y'all were talking was that oftentimes, and this goes on in a lot of different levels, but the education academic community and the economic community don't often talk the same language.
Sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been an issue. And how do you approach that? I mean, because in business, we can figure out how to take it to market.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a language barrier, and I don't mean like a foreign language,
sure.
but but it's almost like a foreign language to a business industrial owner to what y'all are doing.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but wonder: are there any partnerships, say, between the business school and engineering, arts and sciences? Do those exist
There's
already?
some. I mean, we have the like the STEM to MBA program that the university offers. So we have a lot of students who are degree in chemical and biological engineering. I'm sure that's the case with other engineerings and the sciences of. You get a degree in chemical engineering, and then you go and have a 5th year to get your MBA. And so you have people who understand a little bit of both of those worlds to be able to do some of that.
What I'm kind of thinking
really
about is like on a research level, like to bring that into industry, like a partner with the School of Business, and they can help you maybe get corporate partners.
There's some of that. If you have to have the right idea at the right time to be able to do some of those things sometimes, right? So it can be challenging, right? And you've got to have the time and motivation.
And that's not where
to
your
go through some of that.
lie, because
not mine in particular.
You're an innovator at heart.
But maybe one day. I mean, if we have the right technology that lends itself to that, right? Then sure. We just haven't gotten quite there yet.
Yeah, we had the privilege of going over to the Edge for a entrepreneurial weekend, and were blown away by these young students. These were everything from freshmen to postgraduate students. Yeah. And they walked in on a Friday only with an idea, nothing else. And by Sunday, they were pitching a product. And I got to thinking, is there a way to connect that to what you guys do in the lab in engineering, arts, and sciences?
We absolutely should. I mean, you can take ideas of like things that we've patented or patent disclosures that are out there, right? So it's IP protected so that you can have some more of these conversations. And then be able to go through and maybe have them figure out, well, where would I take this? How would I do this? And oftentimes, right, that takes a lot of brain power. So sometimes we need those people to be able to take that load because we just sometimes don't have that.
Well, right. And so David had mentioned during your conversation, he says, I go to a fair number of academic conferences, and you look at the poster presentations. And he gave this example, a low-cost way to, we'll just say, fill in the blank. He says it makes him wonder, what about those partnerships? So I'm wondering maybe more business people should attend those academic conferences.
Yeah, there's things like, techno-economic analyses, life cycle assessments that we sometimes do with our work to try and get some of that understanding on whether or not it is economic or appropriate from a full life cycle understanding. Because a lot of that, we're just like, hey, go do this, go do this, go do this. And we don't always think about those things.
I didn't even know techno-economic was a word, but I love it.
Yeah, they're called TEAs, techno-economic analyses. And so it's very helpful. We've worked with a couple companies on these, but they're helpful to get like bulk costs of things because we get our costs from our vendors that the university works with, and that's a number. But oftentimes when you buying things in bulk, there's a different price. When you're talking about a gallon drum versus a bottle.
Correct.
And so we have to understand how those things translate.
And I don't want to chase this down a rabbit hole, but what the word is often used in today is the ecosystem. Used to just apply to the environmental, arena. It's not the case anymore. There's an economic ecosystem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if you read about that and you look at, and the book I like is called The Rainforest, written by an academic from Southern California. Hard book for me to read, except until you get to the last part of it, and it talks about the economics and compares it to an environmental ecosystem. And I think that's what we're talking about, that this ecosystem that, let's use the University of Alabama's ecosystem. All the different disciplines and all the different parts of it are here. Yep. Every part. Yep. And from a community point of view, and Lisa and I love to push the idea of a research park. We think it's time to create one. Sure. That way we can marry up the guys like you that do such superb work in the lab and with your PhD candidates with our business economic community that the university's turning out too.
Sure.
It just seems like it's the right time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. So I want to get into our discussion about PFAS, but we're up against a break. So we're going to go ahead and segue to break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about what are PFAS and why are they called forever chemicals and why should we care about our water quality? You've been listening to The Noon Show on FM 100.1. Don't go away. We will be right back.